It's another beautiful day in my consciousness. It's great to be back, and it's great to see some of the changes that have occurred. Yeah, change is inevitable, isn't it? Yeah, so where's Huron? Huron, beautiful, beautiful. You fed my soul. Yeah. Did he feed yours? Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to talk about prosperity, and as I was thinking about this talk, I thought maybe it would be really good to go back to basics. What do you think about that? Because we spin off into prosperity so quickly, and we get so focused on the outer realm, we forget that the beginning of prosperity is where? Within, right? So I thought I would review some of that, and you know, when I teach metaphysics, it's often different from what you've heard from others. And I'm just going to start with one little tidbit. The law of tithing is not a law. What do you think about that? Right? Because I can choose to tithe or not, can't you? Right. Which means it's a rule. It's a damn good rule, but it's not a law. If it was a law, God would be doing an automatic withdrawal from your account, right? Because you would have to do it. You get it? So spiritual law, not only does it not change, you cannot not follow it. You must always follow it. Law of mind action, thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. You can't avoid it. So if tithing was a law, you couldn't avoid it. But I've avoided it for years. Did you? Yeah. So what tithing is all about is really about giving and giving from our heart. So, you ready to get romping? And most of you know my starting point is always this. God is principle. Neither he nor she, God is it. So we're not talking about a deity. We're not talking about a concierge God that we make requests to and then he fills them. We're not talking about God as the great Pez dispenser in the sky. We're talking about God is principle. And that's what Myrtle said. God is principle, neither he nor she, God is it. And Charles said, when we say mind, we mean God, the universal principle, which includes principles. And folks, principles are not something that use us, we use them. So in this weird, wonky way, when we're using principle, when we're using divine ideas, when we're using the 12 powers, we're using God. And it's that word God that gets in our way, because if you're like me, the first place I go is that old man in the sky. So a principle is an idea, is a power, and prosperity doesn't fall out of sky like that, okay? Money doesn't grow on trees. Have you noticed that, right? Right? It's really, God is raining ideas on us, and God isn't raining ideas on us. God is the ideas within us. God is the principle within us. So God does not give us material things. That's what we think when we think about prosperity, isn't it? We pray to God to give us stuff, right? But God is mind substance, not money, but ideas. All money is a symbol of an idea. And in fact, we could say money is evidence of a used up idea. Your car is evidence of a used up idea in your mind. You with me? Yeah, so God is principle. It's not money, it's ideas. And ideas that set spiritual forces in motion so that things begin to come to us by application of the law. Blah, blah, blah. Anyone feeling like Charlie Brown at this moment? Right? Yeah, but see, these principles that God is, this principle that you and I are, we must use them according to spiritual law. So, say with conviction, I am strong, immovable spiritual substance. Say that. I am strong, immovable, spirit substance. Because that is what you really are. That's the what of you. We're not talking about your personality. I'm not talking about your body. I'm talking about your divine nature is this spiritual substance, which is essentially principle, idea, or law. And when we hold an affirmation like that, this is what Charles says, this will open the door of your little m mind to an inflow of substance-filled ideas. Have you noticed that? That when you set your intention and your conviction on something, what happens at the point of your mind? You start getting ideas. You start getting related thoughts. They are God's ideas given to you in answer to your prayer and in order to supply your needs. Notice it says needs, not your wants necessarily. Principle fulfills our needs. And you are a master in the realm of these creative ideas. Did you know that? You are the master of these ideas and principles. I am the master of creative ideas. Say that with me. I am the master of creative ideas, because that's the truth. Who uses ideas? Yeah, okay? And principle is spiritual substance. Substance in divine mind is a universal idea of perfection in form. But a person's thought usually characterizes that. Have you noticed that? You get this great idea, and then you start working with it in your mind, don't you? And you start characterizing that substance, that idea, that principle, that power, according to the level of your consciousness. Low consciousness, low output. High consciousness, high output. Make sense? Yeah. So this substance lies back of all matter and all forms. It is the basis of all form, yet enters not into any form. Paul, what does that mean? So we have a piano here, right? The piano is physical substance. Lying back of that is an idea of piano. Makes sense? But can you find that idea in the piano? No. Because ideas and principles lie in a very distinct realm from this physical realm we live in. So substance is everywhere present, pervades all things, and inspires to action. So this substance that you are, that I am, this your divinity, this principle, this divine idea lies back of everything. Not just me, not just you, but everything. And it's this substance that makes us one. It's this divinity that makes us one. My personality isn't your personality, and I know you're happy for that. My body isn't your body, right? But in this metaphysical, spiritual domain that we call principle is where we are one. And we are not of small beginnings, but of infinite beginnings, because principle is infinite. How many times can you use an idea? Infinite, right? How many things can you produce from an idea? Infinite. How many times can you use an idea? Infinite. So can you see that an idea demonstrates abundance? What is more abundant than a thing that can be used an infinite number of times by an infinite number of people to create an infinite number of things without ever being changed? Think about that. That's a profound understanding. That the ideas that we use and the ideas that we are, by their nature, demonstrate abundance. Our resource is infinite principle. You see, we talk about God as source, and from our traditional backgrounds, we say God is sourcing us. The truth is, these principles, these laws, are an infinite resource within us. They're kind of like a metaphysical Amazon, You know, you can go inward, and there's an infinite supply of these. And we are never at loss for supply. And then in order to use this supply, to use this substance, to use these divine ideas, to use God, we must use the law of expression, from the abstract to the concrete, from the formless to the formed. Unity people have a little allergy for this next word I'm going to use. It's called limit. Because we're always singing about how we're free and unlimited. However, the facts are, in order to use an idea, we must limit it in some way to something more specific. The person who had the idea for the piano limited the piano idea to that specific design, and then that piano could be created. Are you with me? And so this is where we go from an abstract idea to something more concrete in consciousness, a more formed idea, using another one of the powers, the power of imagination. We use imagination to shape substance, to shape ideas, to shape principles. You're doing this all the time. Do you notice that? You're with friends, you decide you want to go to a restaurant. Well, until you make that restaurant specific, are you going to go anywhere? No. So what did that group do? They took this idea of going to a restaurant and limited it to a specific one. So we start with idea or principle, which is abstract. Then we limit it or define it or focus or form it or refine it, okay? And we have an inner experience of it. And then we can go into the concrete and the outer manifestation. We have that idea of restaurant. We decide as a group to go to, McDonald's. Yuck. To Bonefish Grill. How's that? Is that better? Okay. And then you get this feeling inside, right? Yeah. And it's that feeling nature that you've activated that you're using to motivate yourself. So we talk about lack when we're talking about prosperity, and limitation is not the problem because you have to limit an idea to make it useful. The problem is over-limitation of divine substance is the problem. Now let me show you that very specifically. So E.V. Ingraham, one of my favorite Unity writers, said this: we already have all the power there is. You can't get more power. You can't get more divine love. You can't get more divine wisdom. All of it in its totality is present and available at the point of you. We have had the power to demonstrate disease in the face of omnipresent health. Have you done that? We have had the power to demonstrate poverty in the presence of inexhaustible substance. Isn't that amazing? So let's put that into the diagram. So the infinite idea is omnipresent health. And then we limit it. If we limit it in one way, we get healthy consciousness, healthy body, we get well-being. If we limit too much, we get disease. This is why in unity prayer, we don't ask for healing. We go back to the originating divine idea and limit it differently to that state of health or well-being, okay? So in a sense, when we take omnipresent health and we limit it too much and create disease, when we pray, we go back to omnipresent health and limit it less. Did you see what I did there? Try that again. We limit it too much. If we limit an idea too much, we can always go back to your originating idea and limit it less to get a different outcome.
Is that why it's limitless?
So an idea is limitless. Absolutely. So if we start with inexhaustible substance and we limit it appropriately, we get sufficiency. Sufficiency. I like to talk about that, which is mean we get enough. because there's always enough. Always. If we limit it too much, we get poverty, we get lack. So the solution, when someone wants prayer requests for the appearance of lack, is we go back to inexhaustible substance or divine idea, whatever you want to call it. We go back there to its limitlessness, and we limit it less. And that is the prayer solution for everything. You go back to the originating idea. And then there's supply and demand. This is important in the process of demonstration. There is already provided a lavish abundance for every human want. When I first read that, I read that as a lavish abundance of things that God gave me. But what's provided? A lavish abundance of what? Divine ideas, of principle. There's a lavish abundance of those, okay? And Emily Cady said, the supply of everything always awaits on the demand. We've got to put a demand on our infinite potential. And when you put a demand on our infinite potential, then we have to limit that potential to something specific. I took the divine idea of Christ, which is really all the powers, and somewhere, somehow, I limited them in a way to get Paul Hasselbeck, the personality, Paul Hasselbeck, the body. Not doing it consciously, but that's the process. That's how you got you. That's how you got you. That's how you got you, is by limiting the Christ principle. And this is the way it's done. Concentrated attention of the mind on an idea of any kind is equal to prayer. So whenever you're concentrating on some idea or concept, you're praying. Even if that's a fear thought, or a worry thought, or a negative thought, that concentrated thought is a form of prayer. You are putting a demand on infinite supply. And then what happens? So that type of concentration makes available universal principles that are the idea's source into the proportion to the intensity and continuity of the mental effort. So when you're thinking negative thoughts and you're concentrating on it, you're putting a demand on your infinite potential, on those principles, so that you can manifest what you're worrying and fearful about. Get it? Yeah. This is why it's so important for us to be aware of what's going on in our consciousness, to clean up our consciousness. So what we're concentrating on is the good of us. And these universal principles or divine ideas or substance are potential forces waiting to be set in motion through proper formative vehicles. The thinking, feeling faculty in man is such a vehicle. You see, that's the demand. Principles just are. The principles of electricity, the laws of electricity just are. The electrician puts a demand on them. They put their thinking and feeling nature into those principles and laws and help us light this building. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, the formative power of our thought and word is governed by our faith in ourselves. Do you remember Jesus harped on that? That it's the faith in the person that healed them. Remember that? Yes. The formative power of thought and word is governed by our faith in ourselves. And get this, the vehemence in which we think and speak. The more strongly you talk about fear and worry, the more likely you're going to produce that. And vice versa. Vehemently, folks. You know, it's not like this mamby-pamby little prayer. Okay? It's this demand. You are the master of these ideas. Do you get it? You have absolute dominion over your own consciousness. No one else does. So let's say with conviction, I am strong, immovable spirit substance. Again, I am strong, immovable, spirit substance. I am master in the realm of substance. Yeah. And so you are, and so I am, and so it is.